Tom Vasel here. Today we're taking a look at another shelf in the Dice Tower collection. This is shelf 1B. And we're just kind of taking a look at the shelf itself. I'm talking about the games, why they're in the library, what I think of them, etc. So we're going to start here with the very end. We have two games that are in the same universe, Lords of Xidit and Seasons, some fantasy style universe. And Lords of Xidit, they're very different games, but I put them together because the same universe. Lords of Xidit is a programming game where you're moving around collecting resources and stuff. It's quite a good game, but hasn't got the acclaim that its older brother Seasons gotten. Now, of course, I actually like Seasons better too. Seasons is one of my favorite games. I actually have two expansions in Season, but they're both in separate bags because they're, it does throw the game off a little, but just playing cards, collecting resources, spending those resources, just really two really good games. These will be in the library for a long time, as well as In the Hall of the Mountain King. Now, I'm recording this in June 2021. There's a sequel to this called The Fall of the Mountain King. It's not out yet. But In the Hall of the Mountain King, I mean, if it's like this one, first of all, the component quality here from Burnt Island is off the charts. But that's not why I like the game. I mean, it doesn't hurt. But there's this trickle-down effect with these cards, these troll cards, where you're getting resources from them. And it is such an amazing way it works. I love to see it used in other games. And then, of course, polyomino type stuff involved in here. Really cool game. Dream Home. This is one of the more simple games on this list, or in this shelf here. In fact, it's bugging me because it's smaller than the other games. I might have to move it at some point. This is one of the, I think I'm one of the last people in Dice Tower to play this one, a little bit behind a curve, but it's a really easy game. Drafting cards, putting them in your house, and scoring points. Walls of York. Now, Walls of York is it's very similar to a roll and write game, but the difference here is you're actually putting the pieces on the board. You're actually putting out, walls and pieces on. It's a three-dimensional one. There's some similarities here to Era, and I think Era is the better game. And this one, I remember when this one first came out, I actually considered it for Dice Tower Essentials and finally passed on that, or maybe I tried to get it and they passed on me. I don't remember. Either way, I was certainly interested in it. But when it came out, it really didn't get a lot of buzz. But I'm having it here in the library because it should be in the library. Then we have Tobago. Now, Tobago is a fantastic game. In fact, the expansion for it just came out, although I think Z said the expansion is not that amazing. But I really like it. Tobago, a deduction-style game, but you are causing where the buried treasure is. This one's always going to be in the library. Same as Dice Town. And to drop it. But Dice Town here, a game where you're rolling dice and then using those dice to control different areas on the board with an expansion. And the expansions are fun. There's two expansions for it. I like them both. But even the base game, Dice Town is one of the most just pure fun games there is. You roll dice. You can keep a couple dice. You're trying to make the best poker hand. Fantastic. Drop It, I've played more than all the other games on the shelf put together. Now, part of that is because I played this game at I took it to a homeschool convention one time and demoed it there. So we just played it over and over and over again. But this was a game that just honestly, people just kept coming and coming and coming and coming to play because it was so simple and it's just, you're just dropping shapes in and you're trying to score points as you drop them in. It's a really fantastic game. Carrossel is on this shelf the game that's most likely to disappear. Now, that's not to say it's a bad game. I thought it was a fine game. It's an interesting game. This was the hotness, kind of sort of from Meebo from Essen a few years ago, about placing different horses and animals in a merry-go-round. But it's likely not going to be here. In fact, when the Dice theme park shows up, that seems like a good one to take its spot. We'll see. It's good, but this one's not long for the shelf. Dice Hospital, on the other hand, I really like this game. In Dice Hospital, you are essentially trying to cure patients, which are dice, and those patients are getting sicker and sicker, and you need to heal them. And so I just really like Dice Hospital for that reason. Then next to Dice Hospital, we have Nyctophobia. Now, I thought Nyctophobia is an okay game, but it's such a unique game that's why it's in the library. This is a game that people with bad eyesight or even no eyesight could possibly play because in this game, most of the players have a blindfold on them. One person is a serial killer trying to catch them, like an axe murderer in the woods. And so you're guiding people's hands and you're feeling around blindly. Again, it's not a game that I love, but it's so unique and interesting that I thought it should be in the library. Then we got a couple Lord of the Rings games. Now, there's a lot of Lord of the Rings games, but these are widely considered two of the best. War of the Rings is a different size, so that's on a different shelf. But Lord of the Rings, this is the original, the first major cooperative game ever published. There were other cooperative games, but this was the first one that brought it to the limelight, although it was several years ahead of its time. I just got a couple expansions for Lord of the Rings, Friends and Foes and Sauron, and I'm probably going to stick them in here. I don't normally put expansions in these days, but I think they add some stuff to it, but it's really fun. Hunt for the Ring is the only game on this particular shelf I've not played. I know I've heard good things about it. Sam played it back in the day. He didn't care for the rule book and such, but this is a like Scotland Yard type thing, and I tend to like those games. Now, Aries does have a problem with their rule book, so it probably isn't the easiest game to learn, but I think someday I'm going to give this one a whirl. Candamir, The First Settlers. Now, this is a really, really weird game that most of you probably haven't heard of, but it's worth checking out. This is a role-playing board game set in the Catan universe. That doesn't sound that exciting, and honestly, the theme isn't really, but it's there. You're playing some settlers who are going around and hunting and doing things, and you actually can increase their stats. It's such a different game, and I like having it in the library because, again, this is one that most people haven't tried out, so you should give this one a whirl. And then Rajas of the Ganges. Wow, what a great game. Dice placement in this game. I mean, the theme is barely there, but you are collecting dice and then using those dice to move a money track and a point track, and when those two tracks meet, you win. But there are so many different options. This game gives me some really great depth as I play this. And in fact, there are a lot of different games on this shelf. I think Rajas of the Ganges is my favorite one there. Now, I will say that I also really love Dice Town. You know, that's a really great game on this shelf. And Seasons and the Hall of the Mountain King are really high up there too. But there's no game on this shelf that I technically dislike. Like I said, I probably won't play Carrossel and Nyctophobia again. I do need to get around to playing Hunt for the Ring. But anyway, that's a really cool shelf. I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be back occasionally with more of these shelves. Only 223 of them to go. Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching the Dice Tower.